you were to ask the average Christian to describe Jesus, they would probably use words like loving, humble, selfless. And although I do think Jesus exhibited those traits in his lifetime and in his ministry according to what was written about him in the Gospels, I really have to push back on this idea that Jesus was inherently selfless. Because if Jesus is God, which most Christians would agree that he is, regardless of the idea of the Trinity and the three gods in one, Christianity is a monotheistic religion. It has one supreme deity. And even though it has one deity in three persons, there's still one deity. So Jesus is both the Son and the Father. Jesus is God. Therefore, Jesus is the biblical God, the Old Testament God. And when I look at the Old Testament God, I do not see a God who is selfless and loving and humble and kind. I see a God who created humanity for one sole purpose, so that he could be glorified. He created human beings to serve him, to love him, to adore him, to do whatever he says, to act as servants for him so that his name will be glorified. And to me, that is the antithesis of selflessness. To me, that is inherently selfish. And so I want to kind of explore this idea of the biblical God being the source of selflessness, being our example of selflessness. And I think I could make my case for this pretty easily using the Bible itself. So let's talk about it. Let's get into the inherent selfishness of God, which this is going to make a lot of Christians mad. It really is. And that's okay. But let's start by kind of examining the common Christian viewpoint of this entire system. It's kind of binary. You either go to heaven or hell. You're either saved or you're punished. Within the Christian worldview, and I'm talking specifically like Protestant, fundamentalists, conservatives, evangelicals, those bubbles. Your salvation is through Jesus Christ and Jesus Christ alone. Your sin is what sends you to hell. At least that's what they say, except for your sin doesn't send you to hell because everyone sins, even Christians. So what really sends you to hell is your unbelief or your unwillingness to serve God, to be a disciple of Christ. So you either choose to follow this God, to serve him all the days of your life, and you follow him into eternal bliss where you get to continue praising and serving him into eternity. Or you don't follow and serve and worship this God, and you are eternally punished in some capacity. Now, some Christians believe that means you're going to burn forever. Some Christians believe you're going to burn for a little bit, just a tiny little burn, a quick burn, and then you're annihilated. Some Christians believe you're entirely annihilated, or some Christians might say that you are eternally separated from God. You're just separated from all light and goodness and love. But whatever it is a reward and punishment system. If you do the thing God wants you to do, if you serve him and love him, you get rewarded. If you don't, you get punished. So within that system, we can only reasonably conclude that the entire purpose is to serve God. If God rewards you for serving him, but he punishes you for not serving him, then he wants you to serve him. That's the goal, right? That's what you have to do to be saved. So knowing that, we can very reasonably conclude that God's intentions are not to create humanity because he wants to love them, not to create humanity because he wants to just kind of experience other beings and, see what happens. God creates humanity specifically with the intent of being served and glorified. And we can back this up biblically. It's all over the Bible. In Isaiah 43:7, it says, "Everyone who is called by my name, whom I created for my glory, whom I formed and made." So God is admitting, I created you for my glory. I created you for me. In Romans 11:36, it says, "For from him and through him and to him are all things. To him be glory forever." Isaiah 43:21 says, "The people whom I formed for myself, that they may declare my praise." I formed them for me so that they may declare how great I am. Ephesians 3:9-10, this is a really interesting one. And to bring to light for everyone what is the plan of the mystery hidden for ages in God. So God has some big mystery hidden in him, who created all things so that through the church, the manifold wisdom of God might now be made known to the rulers and authorities in heavenly places. Who are these rulers and authorities in heavenly places that God is trying to make his name known to? Almost seems like this verse is suggesting that people were created just to prove how great God is to all the other gods that are in heaven. And then Ecclesiastes 12:13, the end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. So Ecclesiastes is saying, your whole purpose, your duty, what you were created for is to fear God and keep his commandments. Do what God says because God wants you to do it. Why does God want you to do what he says? Because it brings him glory. The definition of selfish is lacking consideration for others or concerned chiefly with one's own personal profit or pleasure. So God admits over and over again that he created people for his own glory, his own pleasure, his own purpose. That is the definition of being selfish. God is selfish because he created humans for him. Now, in any other situation, if a parent created a child, if a parent, birthed a child and did so only so that child could worship them, love them, serve them, adore them, glorify them, didn't care about what the child wanted, but only wanted the child to make sure that the parent was glorified, and then threatened their child with punishment if they didn't glorify the parent and love the parent and dote on the parent, that would be considered abuse. It would be unethical. But when God does it, somehow it translates to love and selflessness. I question how much God loves humanity when he commands that humanity serves him. If you love someone, you don't command that they serve you. When you love someone, you serve them. And you hope that they'll love you enough to kind of serve you back. And I mean serve in the way of, helping one another, being kind to one another, lifting one another up. It's a mutual two-way street. That's what love is. Like true love between two beings, two people. There is not this expectation of worship and servitude. There is not an expectation of unending loyalty no matter what. If I love someone, I don't say, you must be loyal to me. You must love me. You must serve me. You must adore me, even when I don't do the same for you. Because it's not about you. It's about me and my glory. If I did that, that would be really messed up. That would be pretty unethical. I wouldn't be acting in love as we kind of define it typically. And I think even Christians would agree that in that situation of me and another person or a parent and a child, it wouldn't be love. And it certainly couldn't be considered selfless. There's nothing selfless about creating someone just so they can glorify you. And so I think there is this great cognitive dissonance within the minds of believers where they define love one way when it comes to their relationships and how they view the world. But when it comes to God, they define love completely differently. When people are acting selfish, they can easily see it. When God is acting selfish, it's somehow selfless. To be free in a relationship is to not be controlled, not to be told what to do. But then to be free in Jesus is to literally follow his commands and to do whatever he tells you to do. So believers have to really redefine reality. They have to redefine what it means to love. They have to redefine what it means to be selfish or selfless. They have to redefine what it means to be free. They're redefining everything about what we know to be true about reality to make special exceptions for God. Because in any other situation, someone who creates a being just to serve them and glorify them, that's the definition of selfish. And it's kind of cruel. But Christians could never see God as that way. And why? Because they're taught not to question God. They're told, you can't question God's ways. This is how God is. God is love. Don't you question it. How dare you? You don't know anything about God. His ways are more mysterious than you could ever understand. So don't question it. He's love, okay? He's selfless, okay? Got it? Don't push back on that. Don't ask questions. But if you do ask questions, how could you come to the conclusion that God is selfless? When God admits over and over again that he is selfish, that he wants to be worshiped and adored, that the whole purpose of all of this is for him to be glorified. And for what? Christians don't like to really think this abstract. They don't really like to think about the ways or the intents of God, the intentions behind what God does, because God is just so above us. He's so mysterious. You just can't understand it. But isn't kind of that the point of living? We're here to imagine and to explore and to think and to really kind of dig into these really complex topics. And so when I think about God and his purpose, why he created humanity, what purpose would he need to be glorified? He's there alone up in the wherever he is. Humans don't exist yet, and he's just existing, and he gets this idea or decides at some point that he's going to create humanity. He's going to make these people, these beings, to serve him. Why does he need to be served? He's fully self-sufficient. He can do whatever he wants. He's God. He could create this kind of simulated reality where people aren't really real. He's just kind of imagining it all. And get the same effect without actually creating real sentient beings that think and can feel and want autonomy, but that he doesn't give it to. So it's so weird to think about this God and his purpose and intentions behind creating humanity to be served. Can he not serve himself? Is he not capable of doing that in some way or another? Apparently not. Because he got bored and created angels. He created humans. He wanted beings that would sing his praises into eternity. I don't want that. I would not want that. That sounds like a lot of attention that would be unnecessary and repetitive. And that would make me feel really selfish and narcissistic. If I was God and I was demanding that everyone just sing my praises all the time, I'd be like, God, can you give me a break? Can you just go sing your own praises for a little while? Sing each other's praises. Leave me alone. But not God. God likes it. He eats it. He craves it. He needs you to love and adore him, because if you don't, he's so angry about not being loved and adored by you that he threatens to just off you or torture you or whatever he does, toss you into hell because you didn't do what he wanted you to do, which was bring him as much glory as possible. That is inherently selfish. I don't know how you could look at that and think that that isn't selfish. And the only reason Christians look at it and say it's not selfish is because it's God, and they make special exceptions for God. It doesn't matter how God portrays his love, it's still love. It doesn't matter how God portrays his selflessness, it's still selflessness. No matter what it is, it's good if God does it, even if it's not by any other standard. Christians tell me that I'm being so selfish by not following God, that the reason I don't want to follow God is because I am just so full of myself and I just want it to be about me and I want it to be all about my ways and what I want. Well, that's kind of true. I do want my life to be about what I want. But how is that any different from the way God behaves? I mean, it actually is much different because I don't go around demanding people love and worship and adore me. But how can I be selfish for wanting things my way in my own life? But God is selfless for creating me just to want his ways and what he wants and to do whatever he says. It doesn't fit. It's nonsensical. And so because it's nonsensical, because it's not compatible with a God who loves humanity, who is good, who is moral, who is ethical. I have to conclude that this God just isn't real. That's where I land. And it's a process to get there. It's not, oh, I don't like God, therefore God isn't real. Because a lot of Christians really like to kind of make that leap. They like to accuse me of claiming God isn't real because I don't like God, when they're missing a really crucial step in that process. I realize I don't like God. Therefore, I realize that he is polar opposite of like the love and goodness that Christians claim him to be. And because the two aren't compatible, you can't have a God who is selfish and bad and, morally bankrupt while also having a God that is selfless and good and ethical. The two aren't compatible. So because they're not compatible, I have no reason to believe that this God is real or true. He contradicts himself. The biblical God contradicts the God that Christians claim he is. They read about this inherently selfish God in the Bible who does all things for his own glory, who wants people to serve him and love him and adore him all the time. But when they present him as a completely different God, a God who is selfless and loving and who, just loves humanity so much. I'm not reading that. And so because I'm not getting what they're getting out of it, because it's nonsensical, I have to conclude that he's made up, that they're making it up, because it's not cohesive. If it was real and true, it would be cohesive. It would all fit together. What I read in the Bible would line up with a God who loves people, who loves humanity, who is selfless. And Christians want to focus just on the life of Jesus, but then simultaneously claim that Jesus is God and therefore the God of the Old Testament. And so I have to be able to look at it all together as one kind of cohesive thing, and it's not cohesive. It just doesn't fit. And so I have to conclude that it probably is made up. And if God does exist, he's evil and selfish, in my opinion. I can't see him as anything else. And wouldn't I be morally obligated not to worship someone who is evil and just wants to be praised and doesn't care about my happiness or well-being? Doesn't care about the happiness and well-being of humanity? He only cares about how his name is glorified into eternity? To me, I think I have an ethical obligation to not worship that God. Because if I worship a God that is morally bankrupt, inherently selfish, well, then I myself am morally bankrupt. I might not be selfish, but that's about it. I'm aligning myself with someone I don't agree with. And I don't agree with the whole system. I think it's bullshit. I think any God who creates humanity just so humanity can serve him is not a God who loves humanity. And if you have to twist the definition of love to make God look loving, then God probably isn't loving at all. So I just kind of wanted to get that off my chest today. I didn't really plan this episode too in depth. I just kind of had it on in my mind. I'm constantly in the comments being called selfish and saying that I just want to live for me and how dare you not love God because he gave himself for you. And I'm just like, if your God exists, he only created me so he could feel really good about himself. So he had beings to remind him how great he was. And that seems like such an awful reason to create beings. I would have rather not been created if that's the system. Thank goodness that isn't the system. Thank goodness, I do believe it's man-made. I don't think this is the real system. I don't think this is the reality we're living in. Thank goodness. Because if it were, it would be a really unfair system for everybody involved, including Christians. But those are my thoughts, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I know that there are Christians who watch this. They're going to disagree with me, and they're going to have their reasons for why they think God is inherently selfless. And I would honestly love to hear why you think that. If you think God is selfless, if you think he is the kind of definition of love and light and goodness and selflessness, I would love to hear your reasons why. And I would love to hear them backed up biblically. And I would love the verses that I provided to be justified. Why is God claiming that he only created humans for his own glory if that is not the only reason, the sole reason that he created humans? Thank you so much for watching, and please like, subscribe, ring the bell, do the thing. Those things help me. Share it with someone you know, someone who might be deconstructing or questioning, or maybe that Christian in your life that you're really just trying to get through to. But don't expect to change their mind. You can always just plant those seeds, as they say. So thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.